right, thanks, Joshua. So, as I was talking just a little bit earlier before everyone joined, I work at the Center for Social Enterprise at Memorial University, which is in St. John's, Newfoundland. The center itself, although located on a university campus, has multiple mandates. We work with the student population to start bringing the concept of social enterprise to the classroom, to the institution, but we also work with our external partners, which we consider to be growing or existing social enterprises in the province. So we don't just work on campus or in the city itself, we actually work across the province to start growing this social enterprise economy or ecosystem across the island and up in Labrador as well. So as Joshua mentioned, we just finished our third Social Innovation Challenge in partnership with the United Church of Canada. And it keeps getting better every year, which is a good sign, I think. Our participation keeps growing, and the planning process gets much easier every time. And I think that's a bit of consistency. If you have the same people doing it for multiple years in a row, hopefully it's bound to get better. So it's been great so far. And our third one this time, the third time I think was a charm, really, in a way, because we partnered with First Light, which is our local Indigenous Friendship Center. And they're in a very unique situation where they are also starting multiple social enterprises, one of which is taking ownership. I'm using the word ownership, but they are taking, it's ownership of a United Church in downtown St. John's. So they have a center, they're calling it the Center for Performance and Creativity, which was once behind, it still is, behind the United Church in that particular area. And so in that space, they're calling it a performance space, a meeting space. They have a fully licensed industrial kitchen there. So they're using this space now to better connect with the community, to bring new life into that physical church structure. The kitchen is being used by local aspiring bakers and foodies and all of these things who don't necessarily have access to all this big industrial equipment. So they've really breathed life into this area. And so it's been a really interesting partnership because we have United Church of Canada on Joshua's side, First Light Center, and the Center for Social Enterprise, but it's just beautifully convenient that First Light also now occupies a United Church. So it's been this really interesting partnership, and it worked out really well because then we were able to bring people into this physical space without it being intimidating or anything like that, because they knew they were going into the Indigenous Center. So it kind of softened the whole process and made it very interesting and brought a lot of awareness, I think, to all causes involved. So it was an excellent partnership, and I think it was extremely successful overall. So in that planning process, the things that get easier every year, as Joshua's done it a few times, the process becomes simpler. How do we reach out to our participants? How do we reach out to our mentors? How do we reach out to our judges? It's nice that there's another organization taking care of it because of our capacity reasons. Events they're just time consuming to run. So having someone else own the process is actually quite helpful. But then having people, the boots on the ground, is, I think, what makes it successful in a way, because then you have those interpersonal connections. If I'm looking for judges, it's easier if I go to someone that I know in the community rather than someone from Toronto coming down. And making those connections. So by working together and those weekly phone calls with Joshua helps create almost that time management process where Joshua knows the programming and where we need to be at certain times, but then relies on the local partner to help make it happen. It's a good process, but because we've done it 3 times now, it's a much easier process. So it takes time, but it's fairly straightforward overall, and I think it's been working, which is good. Looking through my notes, I think we've come up with 3 things that really have stood out as successes for this. And this will be absolutely location dependent. Number 1 for us is we didn't have an elimination process from the original pitches to the final round. Some of that is because of our numbers. We had 18 participants with 12 total pitches, we'll say 12 ideas, some were teams. So rather than narrowing it down, say we had 12 pitches, rather than doing the second round with your top 10, that means you're only cutting 2. And in the interest of time and exclusion and these things, we said, well, we'll just do all the 12 again. And we liked that. Now, it's not going to happen in Markham where you have 50 participants. I understand that there's going to be differences for different regions. But by not having an elimination round, it moves it away from your traditional business pitch and pick or these types of Dragon's Den things. Because although we're talking about social enterprise and we need to think about revenue generation and sustainability, all of those things, we see the social innovation challenge is by encouraging people to start thinking about social innovation or social impact. And if we narrow it too far down on the business side, we have these business pitches, who are your funders, your donors, your money asks, we may not necessarily get all of the people who are interested in the ideas, in the social impact, and wouldn't it be nice if these kind of big ideas things that may not necessarily be fundable at first glance, but it helps foster the spirit of social innovation. It helps grow the ideas, the big thinkers, the people who might not necessarily start a business, but who might influence the organization in which they're working to start considering social impact, these kinds of things. So it works for us right now because our numbers are lower. So we're able to foster a little bit more of that ideas, not necessarily have to be so, I'm not going to use the word vicious because that's not right. It was a very warm and welcoming and inclusive event. But we have a lot of these business pitching ideas, and a lot of them are just very business oriented. What's your idea? What's your profit margins? What's your ask from your funders? You cut half in the first round, you move on. We see a lot of that. And so by having a space where it's similar but not quite in that environment, we like the social impact, the visionary stuff. So because of our small numbers, we're able to do that a little bit more, which we liked. Another big success for us was that partnership with CBC on top of First Light. So CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, our news folks on the federal level, they just brought so much value and attention, and not just the winners got featured. And again, maybe this is this inclusivity part, but they did stories on the interesting ideas, not just the winners of the money. We love that. And then point number 3 would be the diversity of the event. There were students, because we're here, at a university, so we had a wide range of students to advertise to. But we also had non-students. We had seniors. We had people that were just working. So by holding the event not on campus at an outside location, it helped increase the diversity of the event. So I would continue to recommend that if you want to reach a broader group of people aside from just students, which is what we typically get when we hold things on a campus. So for us, again, location, your location will differ, but by holding things for us off campus was a big success because we got to just reach a slightly broader audience, which is, as a center, we always hope to do since we're provincially mandated instead of just university mandated. So for us, that was a big win. Some things that we're seeing now as the aftermath, the after effects of all of this. Keeping up with the participants. So I think just like many groups, we're also reporting on our activities along the line. And so now that it's reporting season, they're asking about, for example, the Social Innovation Challenge. And they're saying, well, how many students did you reach? How many whoever's did you reach? And we're still, so because we're not owners of the program, which is fine, we don't necessarily have say the registration list or all of the information about all of the contacts. And so just in terms of the ease of our own reporting, if we could have, I don't know, yeah, maybe the registration. I know we have some of them, but we don't have necessarily like all of the final stuff, rather than have to always come back to you, Joshua, and go, what were those numbers again? Yeah, just for ease of our own reporting, that's a helpful thing now that we see, now that we're trying to report on things, we're like, oh, that would be helpful. And then also on the participant side, the what happens next with those who are here. And this happens a lot as Newfoundlanders, as an island, where people come in and they do a thing or they drop an idea, and then they go back to the mainland again. And so since we're here, since we now have the center with the capacity to continue to engage with these social innovators, having the contact information of all of those participants, even the non-winners, would be, I think it would help increase their sense of support, because just because they didn't win a prize at the event doesn't mean that they don't have great ideas, or that they could get involved in something similar in some way. And so I think kind of looking at what happens after the event, given that we're a little bit less on the businessy pitch side and a little bit more of that community growth side, we would certainly be interested in doing some follow-up with the participants, even the non-winners. And then, and I know, you have to remind me, Joshua, did the participants receive all access to that social mentor network? Because so that one there, the social mentorship network, I think we would be really interested in learning about are our participants using it, and what sort of supports do they have? Yes, it's a national, much larger network, obviously, than what we would be able to provide to them here locally, but because of our geographical isolation, sometimes having an in-person support is also helpful, in addition to the national support, because we want to have people think bigger, think global, or even national. But if they have a person in person, sometimes that they can bounce ideas off of, I think it's just handy. So these are kind of our big learnings from the event. We certainly plan on continuing with them, as far as I understand. They're valuable. They're valuable to the community. Every year it gets a little bit bigger. Every year it gets a little bit better. Every year we are bringing new partners into the discussion, and I think that's what's really interesting about it. Now we have First Light, who happen to be located in a church. We have CBC, who has now kind of built us into their reporting schedule around that time of year. We now have students who have transitioned from undergraduate to graduate programming, and they're bringing their social ideas into their graduate programming, which may not have happened otherwise. We have graduate students who are transitioning out of university who still want to work on an idea. And then we have community leaders. We have mentors and judges and other participants who aren't students, who are now seeing the value in social innovation, social impact, community building through business or through social enterprise. And it's really starting to change the discussion on what's happening here with our social economy, we'll call it. It's really starting to move things along. And so by having the Social Innovation Challenge as an extra tool in our toolbox to start bringing this along, I think it's a very, very valuable thing to what we're trying to accomplish over here. I'm not sure where I am on my time.
Thank you, Hannah.